It is being bold. It is being brilliant. It's being non-apologetic about what we're doing.
We had to leverage those abilities and just to come to the table and execute like never before.
Bring in capable people, coach them, make sure they're connected to the outcome, and let them run.
As a leader and with your team, have to have the will to win.
Connecting more with our humanity and, pausing for a moment to be the human beings that we are.
But with humility, you know that you can leverage that skill set that people have and let them be their best.
This will be a time of innovation.
Hi, and welcome to Courageous Leadership in Times of Global Crisis and Uncertainty, an HMG live virtual briefing covering what matters most to drive a winning agenda and make the future a better place. A warm welcome to today's host, Lead Principal and CEO of HMG Strategy, Hunter Muller.
Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to the 2020 Toronto CIO Virtual Summit. I'm Hunter Muller, Lead Principal of HMG Strategy. My team and I are delighted to be here with you today. I think we have a world-class agenda of really brilliant thought leaders, industry luminaries to help shed light on reimagining the business and the future of work, what you need to know now. So, a big thanks to our association partner, the Toronto CIM Chapter. Been collaborating with the Toronto CIM Chapter now for some time. Really appreciate your support and active engagement. And this summit is powered by Zoom. Thanks to Zoom. Hey, we've been busy since the pivot about 3 months ago, a little over 3 months ago. Probably put on over 20 plus summits, 10 webinars, various other interviews, hundreds of advisory board calls, and redirecting to our virtual platform, the virtual summit model. Great fanfare, just wrapped up a London summit, our best ever. Over 190 signed up, about 150 showed up for the 1.5 hour summit. We'll plan to be back there about every 3 months with our new partner. But please dial in and spread the word. Thank you. So also engage on social media. We're doing some amazing work on our media platform, some 100,000 impressions a week worldwide, and some million impressions a week worldwide off our research listserv. So dial in and join the conversation. So a bunch of summits coming up just this week. Seattle on the 23rd, the New York Global Innovation, June 26th, followed by Philly on the 30th, and then the Financial Services Summit, as well as a webinar coming up this week, June 25th with Okta. So, hey, thanks for zooming in. Again, my team and I are delighted to be here. We aim to cover issues that are not being covered in other forums, and I think we will not let you down here today. Stay dialed in to the very end. We'll probably pull everyone together at the very end with a little networking and a little roundtable discussion. So great to have you here today, and thanks for zooming in. First up, our global CIO of Zoom, Harry Moseley. Harry, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter, how are you?
Excellent.
Lovely to be here. Took me no time to get here.
Amazing time, right? We're living in Zoom time now, aren't we, Harry?
It's certainly, we are a very popular topic, that's for sure.
I mean, well, let's put this in context. We've both been at it well over 30 years. In this phase, coming out of this crisis, there probably isn't a more significant brand and interest in a brand than Zoom. And what Zoom affords the enterprise to deliver and do in a very effective, efficient, easy way to connect people worldwide. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so there's been tremendous interest in the Zoom platform, clearly. You know, when you see the rise in the use of the platform, we ended last year, December 2019, with 10 million daily participants. That went to 200 million daily participants in March and 300 million in April, which was fairly staggering growth. We also, another metric we share is the annualized meeting minutes. So in January, that was 100 billion annualized meeting minutes. As of April, that exceeded 2 trillion annualized meeting minutes, which is quite a big number. So it's been a very interesting journey this year. It's like the way I characterize it is, I've been at Zoom now a little over 2 years, and every so often it's the company changes. So it's like, you know, and so as the global CIO, my role changes, and I have to quickly pivot from sort of doing this to doing that to doing something else, which makes it really interesting. You know, it's a very different to being, you know, a CIO in a large enterprise like KPMG or Blackstone beforehand, because this is clearly a rocket ship that we're on here, and the growth that we saw in the first quarter of this year, most companies would love to see that sort of growth over the course of 2 years, maybe 3 years, and we saw it in 12 weeks. So it's whilst we're a 9-year-old public startup, that's the way I characterize what Zoom is. I think we're now more like 11 years old, because we went through that sort of dramatic growth spurt, and now we have to change how we function, how we operate, how we lead, how we manage, how we communicate, internally as well as externally. So it's been a fun ride.
Fascinating. Harry, what would you attribute the market's attributes? If you take out the work from home scenario, what are the attributes of the Zoom platform that makes it so easy to use and so easy to connect on?
Well, I think there's several factors, Hunter. First and foremost, the ease of use. I mean, you click the link and you're instantly in. No hesitation, no meeting tax, no stalling. So that's one. Two is the incredible reliability of the platform. So we're operating at 4 nines or better. And so we're very proud about that metric. The quality of the experience with our proprietary QoS software, always prioritizing the audio over the video. Innovative features like our virtual backgrounds and video backgrounds and things of that nature, breakout rooms, and people have been taking advantage of all sorts of features of the Zoom platform over the last several months. And in addition to that, you know, we are secure and we are private, and now we're actually even raising that bar further by announcing our true end-to-end encrypted service at scale for the enterprise, and that's never been done before. And we're making that available not just to the paid subscribers, but also to the free subscribers as well. So
Brilliant stuff. I saw that in the news there the other day.
Yeah.
You know, you've been a global executive several times over, a global CIO several times over. When you think about your global clients, global CIOs, what are you noticing relative to their efficiency and effectiveness now, meeting and managing via Zoom versus getting on a plane?
Yeah, it's you know, the feedback I get, because I talk to, you know, global clients literally all over the planet. You know, I was talking to people in Germany this morning. I was talking to people in UK after that. So it was a pretty early start to the day, actually. And, you know, we'll end up on the, you know, talking to people on the West Coast and Asia Pacific tonight. So it's, so I do have a pretty significant and broad perspective on that topic. And the feedback is that the world has changed forever. This is a little like another, it has a lot of the same elements of the 9/11 event that we all experienced, unfortunately, many years ago. And so what's that new world going to look like, so to speak? And the general consensus is that the next normal that we're going to enter will be a transitional period, because what we had in life before Corona and what we're currently experiencing, neither of those two will be what that new one is. But we have to go through this next normal. We're going to have to transition through. And so, you know, when you look at it from the employee perspective, employees are really happy working from home. They've actually, you know, they're actually very productive working from home. In fact, more productive working from home than they ever were in the office. They don't miss the daily commute and the daily grind of the commute. And, you know, if you're living, you know, on the East Coast, you don't have to think about sort of winter storms and stuff like that. And even if, you know, putting that aside, the idea of getting on a train or a bus or a subway, how are you going to social distance in that environment? That's going to be like really hard. It'd be great when the kids are back in school. And so working from home with the kids in school, that's perfect, right? Not everybody has the right setup for work at home. So if you don't have that, then you will work back in the office. But in the office experience is going to be dramatically different. The coffee machines are gone. How are you going to handle a canteen? How are you going to handle bathrooms? How are you going to handle corridors, perspex in the cubes? You know, we spent years over, you know, the last 5, 7, 10 years, you know, increasing the density, taking down the cube walls, taking people out of their offices, creating these collaboration spaces, which were very cool. They're all gone. Everybody's sort of like buying back their cubicles and putting up the perspex, and they're going to be one-way corridors. And I think the office environment is going to be very antiseptic in the future. And so that being said, it is what it is. And so the office environment, what I've heard is, you know, between 1/3 and 1/2 of the people of the, you know, population will be there. So we're going to have a really interesting dilemma, which is as follows. Collaborating when everybody's in the office works really well. Collaborating when everybody is remote works very well. When you have this hybrid environment, how do you collaborate with some people in the office and some people not in the office? So I think that's the big challenge that's in front of us. And I think we'll see some exciting technology innovations to bridge the divide between the on-premise resources with the off-premise resources.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, Harry, when you take it up a level to managing a global organization or being connected globally, some lessons learned or interesting stories around executives managing globally?
Yeah, lots of stories. How long do you have? Yeah. Well, you know, one is I was on a board meeting. This is not the Zoom board, but another board meeting I was on, and the CEO was in the middle of making the board presentation. His wife walks into his office and goes, "Can you hold the baby?" And he goes, "Sweetheart, it's like I'm in the middle of a board meeting." She says, "That's an answer to a different question. I said, can you hold the baby?" So here, and then suddenly, you know, he's sitting there in the board meeting holding the baby. It's like, wow. No one said anything. The meeting just continued, and then she came back in and took the baby away. You know, I mean, how many calls have you been on, Hunter, where the cat just walks past someone's camera? You don't even bat an eyelid anymore. You know, there was an article in the New York Times, I think it was a few weeks back, that talked about social distancing. You must be joking. It's like, you know, I know more about my team, more about my colleagues than I ever thought possible. I've met their spouses, their partners, their parents, their grandparents, their kids, their dogs, cats, snakes, rabbits. I've been in their kitchens, their living rooms, their dining rooms, their family rooms, some bedrooms, and an occasional bathroom every now and then. So it's that's quite fascinating. One of the great stories to share was I was talking to a CIO, East Coast CIO, who said, "Harry, it's like I got tech teams all around the world, and what I would do, you know, every week I would be in a different part of the world. I would go and visit, and because I'm a big believer in sort of the notion of walking around. So as a manager, as a CIO, I like to walk around and talk to the people who are doing the real work, not my team, not my leadership team, but the people who are, you know, working in the data centers, who are, you know, working on the help desk, who are, you know, my developers, etc." But he said with coronavirus, I couldn't do that because now, quote, everybody's working from home. So every day I'd make a list of 12 to 15 people in a particular location. And then I would just call them on Zoom out of the blue. They didn't expect me to call. And I would just have a chat with them like I would if I had been walking around the office. and then, you know, any issues that they have, I bring back to my leadership team, and then we solve it. He said, this is so efficient for me. I'm talking to sort of 12 people in an hour every day somewhere else in the world. And the impact that's having on my organization, on my people, on my company is dramatic. He said, you know, I got an email from, you know, one of the people who works in my organization from London as a consequence of a conversation I had with somebody who works in Sydney.
Right.
I mean, so the global impact of this is dramatic.
People probably don't realize you can actually make calls on and ring somebody up on a Zoom call.
Well, we do. We have, well, you can certainly call somebody on Zoom, but we also have Zoom phone, so you actually have a application on your phone for making phone calls, and then elevating those phone calls into video too.
Harry, it's great to have you on the program today. Thanks so much for your engagement and support. Brilliant job, and looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, Hunter. Thrilled to be here as always.
Take care. Bye now.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers. Next up, Sangy Vatsa, the CIO of Comerica Bank. Sangy, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter. How you doing? Glad to be here.
Great to see you, my friend. Hey, culture really matters, and people in accelerating a culture of performance matters. What resonates with you where we are right now, coming out of this crisis and looking to scale up to innovate while probably a dual agenda, innovation while cutting costs?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very critical topic. And over the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to drive transformation across several Fortune brands like American Express, Ford Motor Company, more recently at Comerica Bank, and managing these large global teams across various regions, Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific. And if I think about the aspect of this transformation that we drove at Comerica Bank, it's kind of complete reimagination of the capabilities that our customers and our colleagues use, and then also reassessing all aspects of people, process, technology, work environment, culture, and kind of thinking about it from a standpoint of how do you elevate the business performance of your company. So talent development and culture development, I would say, are the two key visible priorities that we set up as part of this transformation. And I believe both of those are very much of key ingredients if you undertake a transformation and to execute a transformation successfully. I also believe culture development is probably even more important from a standpoint that it sets the right kind of a growth mindset in a company. It sets the right tone for the change. And so let me maybe just kind of double click a little bit on how do we go about that aspect. And we partnered with human resources and set up something called ComTech. It's a College of Innovation and Technology inside the bank, and with the goal of uplifting the digital dexterity of our colleagues. And as we went through it, we methodically thought about building up 6 kind of job families. So, for example, engineering, product development, and then kind of went about refactoring the roles we had. We had over 150 roles in technology, and they were not very standard roles. And to kind of rethink about more industry standard and simplified set of roles, and we kind of brought the number of roles down to under 50, and they were mapped to these job families. And then through the curriculum, we were able to then create these kind of beginner, intermediate, advanced level courses. We also went through very methodically looking into what skills were core to our mission. And so we went through the analysis of insourcing, outsourcing, onshore, offshore, and over 75% of our core skills were insourced in the first 2 years. And these were things pertaining to architecture, software engineering, cybersecurity, for example. So while that kind of gives a perspective on the learning culture aspect, let me kind of just call out maybe a few other aspects, Hunter, and then I want to kind of call out the what were the business outcomes. This one very critical cultural aspect that we drove in the company is called two-in-a-box co-creation of products. And essentially, it's a collaborative kind of product development approach where it focuses on certain aspects of how do you create higher empathy, how do you focus on speed, how do you focus on agility, how do you make cybersecurity and operations integration more embedded into your end-to-end product development. And it also emphasizes joint ownership of these products. So for every product that we have, every critical product we have that our customers or our colleagues consume, you have a tech-savvy a business domain owner, and you have a business domain-savvy technology owner, and they kind of co-envision, shape, co-deliver those products. So I think that's been one of the things that has been implemented company-wide. It's become part of our vocabulary, part of the nomenclature of the company. Maybe the two other pieces I would quickly call out in the culture aspect is, I think, focusing on the commitment to deliver. There is another aspect we call 5 Qs. One side of the equation is the focus on execution quotient, XQ. But the other 4 Qs play a very critical role in ensuring a very predictable, high-quality product delivery. And that's, I kind of talked about the LQ for learning quotient, HQ for happiness quotient, EQ for emotional quotient, and then obviously the IQ for the intellectual quotient. And we do emphasize this aspect of oftentimes we call it the 10x rule, that oftentimes it's easier to get to 10x, 10 times the improvement than to just aspire for 10%. So the business outcomes of this cultural hack, if you would, were things like where we went through kind of re-architecting our commercial loan origination process from an end-to-end perspective, something that was highly complicated to begin with, and launched a new digital platform in under 12 months. And that would cut down the entire end-to-end complexity by more than half. Or we kind of reimagined our retail banking account opening process by launching another digital platform. And that has reduced the end-to-end time from multiple days to under 10 minutes. And that includes the collection of deposit from the customer as well. Or if I think about kind of the redesign of our customer service process, really bringing a modern set of capabilities to our customer service capabilities overall, and really elevating the Net Promoter Score, elevating customer satisfaction scores. And so in summary, I would say this focus on culture and talent development, once it became very visible, we were able to introduce over 30 new digital platforms in under 3 years to really help elevate the performance of the company.
I love it. So, Sangy, how would you characterize your leadership style in these challenging times?
Yeah, Hunter, I would say, I think maybe the 5 pieces that really stand up to me is number one, be kind of genuinely involved with people, really kind of genuinely understand the needs people have. That kind of brings the aspect of relationship building, the focus on empathy. The second piece I highlight is that you have to have a bold thinking. You have to be able to envision bold goals and really think about the art of the possible. And then to be able to have kind of clear eyes that you want to be able to, with a clear line of sight, deliver those outcomes. You also want to make sure that you have this continuous learning environment where you're learning. If you fail, it's okay. You actually learn from it. Don't regret your past. In a way, basically learn from it. And then last but not the least, focus on integrity goes a long way, and that energizes your colleagues to deliver the outcomes for you, and you can play a role of a quarterback at that point.
Hey, Sangy, it's always great to be with you. Thanks so much for coming on the program today. We'll see you here in a little bit on the panel.
Thanks, Hunter. Glad to be here.
Thanks again. Next up, Tom Peck. He's the EVP and CIO and CDO of Ingram Micro. Tom, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter. Thanks for having me. Always good to see you. Always good to be here.
Nice. Hey, a little bit about Ingram Micro being a supply chain and distribution company. What are you seeing in the market now related to the workforce of the future?
Yeah, for those of you who don't know Ingram Micro, $50 billion supply chain and technology distribution company, and call out to all of our Toronto colleagues, that's our Canadian headquarters as well. We've seen, I have a unique perspective, Hunter, because not only am I a CIO running a company's technology deployment and business continuity and all that, but because of what we do for a living, our business, we get to see what's going on across all industries. We're seeing, especially back in March and April, we saw a huge uptick in things like laptops and work from home technologies. We actually call it a work from anywhere surge. That initial surge started to decline a little bit in April and May, largely because people were stocking up on those laptops and virtual desktops and things of that nature. We've since seen a transition to what we call phase two, which is more webcams, docking stations, monitors, which would lead us to believe that this work from home or this home office concept has more of a sustainable way of working around the globe. The number of software products, hardware products, peripherals that we're seeing is just exponentially larger than what we've ever seen before, Hunter. So it's an interesting time as we think about how to balance that work from home versus that work back in the office.
Hey, Tom, it's probably one of the most challenging times to be a global CIO, but could this be the best time to be a tech leader?
Hey, that's a great question. I really do believe it is a great time. I think it's easy to be good when things are good, or things are predictable or easy. Everybody can be a good IT leader, a good CIO, a good leader, but when times are tough, that's when we all have a unique opportunity to step up. We don't know it all. I don't know it all. I think somebody said earlier about being humble and being a good listener. Because we're critical to the supply chains of the world, and many of those people on this call today are actually consuming products either professionally or consumer from our supply chain. We had to get 18,000 warehouse workers continue to operate in the warehouse. We had to get another 18,000 home office workers up and running. 36,000 employees we got up and running or stayed up and running within 48 hours back in mid-March. It took a lot of team effort, a lot of talent across the environment. And being a leader in these times requires different skills. It requires a different way that you engage with your people. It requires a different way you engage with your customers. It requires, like Harry said, you learn more about your associates and your employees now than you ever have before. I've seen those cats, I've seen those partners, I've seen those spouses, I've seen the rooms around the house. Getting that level of engagement with your people, it's more important now than ever. And we sometimes took for granted the walking around in the hallway, and you'd have those ad hoc, water cooler, coffee pot conversations. But now you have to make that extra effort, okay? And there's huge demands, and happy to talk a little bit more about that as well.
Hey, Tom, you're passionate about leadership, and I've always really admired your whole leaning forward, leading courageously, I'd call it, just as an observation, my observation. What is it like to lead a global organization via a digital platform, via a pane of glass? What's different about it for you?
Yeah, I think leading a global team, we have operations in 160 countries. I have almost 2,000 employees, another 1,000 contractors around the globe, run supply chains. We have to always be on our game, and the way people like me and many on this call are successful is because we train and we empower great talent below us. I think that in today's turbulent times, more than ever, the leadership style is more about empowerment and less about control. It's more about being clear on outcomes, less about how you spend your time. I'm a former military guy, as you know, I'm a former athlete, competitive athlete. It's all about training. It's all about preparation. It's all about small unit leadership. And it's all about trusting the people that you work with. And I think that's usually important. And in today's world, where there is heightened anxiety, both from your employees as well as your customers and your supply base. Having that trust and that rapport and that level of engagement with your people is more important than ever.
Lessons learned over the past 3 months?
Yeah, I think the couple of things come to mind is we've done a couple pulse surveys with our associates and our employees to kind of get in their hearts and minds and find out how they're doing. One of the biggest feedbacks that we've heard is the work-life balance has actually gotten worse. Okay, you probably all heard many times about increased productivity, increased efficiency. You don't have to worry about commuting, but you're balancing that with interruptions. So managing that work-life balance, I actually think is harder today because it's really easy for everything to just blur together and you're always stuck behind your computer. So one of the things that I've tried to instill is leadership from the top, setting a good example, trying to set good behaviors, setting time constraints on when you work and how you work. So that was usually important. The other thing is, you know, as a couple other folks have said earlier, being available is not as easy as just walking down the hall and banging on the door or bumping into you. You have to make extra effort. And none of us should ever take for granted that our employees are well. It gets lonely working from home. It's easy to feel isolated. It's easy to take people for granted. It's easy to assume everything's going well, and you can't be like that. You can't get complacent. You have to really, really work maybe even a little extra harder despite being a good leader and making sure that your employees are engaged.
So true, Tom. I love the points. Will this be a time of innovation when we look back?
Absolutely. What's interesting is me personally, this concept of, hey, we need to digitally transform. I think that term's maybe a little bit overhyped because if you're not already transforming, you know, what have you been doing? Maybe this is a little more of a call to action, maybe a little more sense of urgency. What's interesting is that some companies in certain sectors are scaling back, they're cutting back, reducing costs. I would argue that now is the time maybe to be more aggressive, to be more disruptive. Technology is so pervasive everywhere and everything that we all do. If you really want to win in the marketplace, grab market share, or maybe a defensive posture of preserving market share, you have to disrupt, you have to be aggressive, you have to innovate. You know, we're trying to take a traditional high-touch business-to-business model and turn it into more of a consumer-like B2C model, self-service, and we have to get there faster. And you're seeing the companies who have that sense of urgency, who have that digital storefront, who are winning a customer experience, who are innovating faster, will actually accelerate their lead in the market during these turbulent times.
Absolutely. Well said. What about skills? What kind of skills are you looking for in your next new hires?
Yeah, great question. It's an interesting time. You know, we all want that blend of leadership and business acumen and technical depth and breadth, but what we're also looking for now is people who are skilled at managing risk, at business continuity planning, that they've actually managed through crises. You know, how do you proactively anticipate what could go wrong in your supply chain? How have you navigated not just this current crisis that we're going through, but how have you navigated through crises in the past? It's an experience and a set of skills that you can't necessarily learn in a textbook. There's a certain leadership style that is somewhat more art than science to navigate through risk, to navigate through business continuity and crisis management. I always say that the best IT leaders are those who have had problems, they've had failures, they've had massive things go wrong, not because things have gone wrong, but because they've learned from them, they've navigated through that, and know how to motivate the team through again these turbulent times.
Tom, brilliant insights, and thanks so much for coming on the program today. Stay with us. You'll be part of the upcoming panel.
Thanks, Hunter. It's always an honor. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So next up, the Reimagining the Business and the Future of Work panel session First up, Jenny Alfandary. Jenny's the CIO of Metrolinx. Jenny, welcome to the program. Good to see you.
Fantastic to see you.
Always great to see you, my friend. So, what a different state we're in here a year later. When you think about maximizing outcomes and maximizing the business during these trying times, Jenny, what comes to mind? What are you thinking about?
So, first of all, I think it's unprecedented times calling for completely new type of the leader. And we do need to rethink leadership right now. It does require more strong and more inspirational leadership. And before I start, I actually wanted to give kudos to you, Hunter, for making this session in that important time. So speaking about business, I think we as an organization had to reimagine and rethink what we do on very quickly. And how did we get adopted from business perspective? I think it's really marvelous. So what happened is we actually calculated right now, we're doing 17% of traditional informational technology functionality, and 83% is more business-oriented focus. And we even changed our name instead of IT to informational technology, to business technology. And rail is very heavy industry. And we had to do overnight, we had to change our schedule. We had to change our rail and bus schedule, but also how do we maintain and see opportunities when everyone started to see challenges. And I think it's redefined leadership. It really helped my leadership team to unite, but it also allowed my team to step up and do things that they were not doing before. So indeed, it actually turned out to excellent times for us.
Interesting. So a little context about Metrolinx, please.
So for example, being in rail, it requires, we still have to provide services for essential workers, for the doctors, for the frontliners that still have to take the public transit. So our profits, because rideship went down over 90–95%. So they have to survive on 5% of their profit and income. And that sounds very challenging, but our expenses immediately skyrocketed because we have to disinfect our vehicles. We also have to provide safe environment for our employees and for the riders. And changing all business environment also had to happen very fast. So my team was working 23 hours a day. And we're also part of the frontliners because we have to maintain vehicles and buses. And even implementing collaborative environment as teams, also they have to speed up something that from technology perspective possibly would have taken 6–9 months. We did in a couple of days. So it never happened in the history. Also speaking about business part, scheduling of the, changing schedule of the boards for the trains usually takes about 12 weeks. We did it in 3 days. So it calls completely different approach to work. It changes mindset, but it also inspires team to work completely different.
How do you maintain creativity in a crisis?
So creativity is the key. If you want to inspire your team, if you want to see results that never have seen, you have to maintain creative and collaborative environment. And one of the things that we decided to do very early on the stage when things change, is also to be very honest and very open with what's going on. So if you as an organization and experience challenges, be very honest, just say this. Be also very realistic and not try to misrepresent reality, but be very open with your team. So for example, our team actually in this time created a rapid development of and caring about crowd intelligence, some more product-oriented developments that never happened in our environment. So how do you create this environment? I think when you're really open, when you're transparent, when you're also realistic, and when you don't know the answer, you say this honestly, we don't know this yet. I think it's the most important thing in these times.
Excellent, Jenny. Love it. Thank you so much. We'll stay with us. We'll circle back to you. Next up, Bobby Singh. He's the CTO and CISO of TMX Group. Bobby, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great to see you. I see that you're in Toronto. No, you're in San Francisco.
It's all fake, Hunter. It's all fake.
There you go. Hey, I've seen that before. How does the downturn in the economy change the way you're currently recruiting? What are you looking for right now in your new hires?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. We, as you can imagine, cybersecurity space has always been a very demanding space in the last few years. As a matter of fact, finding folks that are talented, but also have the aptitude and the skill set has been a fairly hot market. We're looking at this current market and more importantly, upcoming economical condition more as a positive for in the cyberspace. I believe that we hopefully will have better options to pick and choose. We very much been in a I guess a buyer market where the folks that we were hunting for, recruiting for, were had the upper hand. I believe hopefully that will change a bit, not in a bad way, but I think it will give us a better option to pick those resources we think are more palatable and applicable to our environment. The training that we spend initially when we recruit someone in this current day and age the cost would possibly go down as we can hire some experienced folks. But I'm more excited about the opportunity, hopefully, to recruit globally as well. So, instead of saying that we work from home, now the mantra is we can work from anywhere. So if there are opportunities to recruit folks that are in remote locations, don't have to be in the Toronto GTA area, but let's say they happen to be somewhere in Canada or even globally for that matter, because I know there's a significant amount of talent in Israel as well when it comes to cyber. Now, we're thinking that with this pandemic, it gives us organizations the opportunity to expand and get out of the paradigm that people have to be physically on site and work. Yes, it's needed at times, but I think that it opens up us, at least from a cyber point of view, a fairly good landscape for us to choose from. So in a silver line to the cloud, let's see what happens in the next few months or 12 months. But I'm hoping, if anything happens to the economy in a downturn perspective, it will give us a better option to execute on a couple of things I mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Bobby. Are you seeing increased activity on the cyber front?
Not significantly. I think we initially in mid-March, when everybody went remote, as you can imagine, we saw a significant number of increases in phishing attacks, spam, and some level of malware that was more geared towards enticing people to click due to COVID-19 or pandemic or even job security and so forth. But no, we didn't see any significant increase overall. I think what we did notice was the shift in attacks for that matter. So I don't believe the number of attackers or hackers went up, but I think we did notice the shift happened from one side of the attacks going down and the other one picking up, as I mentioned, in mid-March to, I would say, at least till mid-April. For 4 or 5 weeks, it was pretty intense, but after that, I think it's kind of settling down a bit.
How's activity within the group and the trading platform? Is it picking up?
Yeah, I mean, I think volatility in any time gives us people some anxiety, I guess. So that you always see more transactions buying on the selling side as well. So we're certainly seeing some uptick on that. I think it's selling a bit as well compared to before, but I think we did see a significant spike earlier on. And I'm sure there'll be some as the U.S. election comes nearby and other economical changes. I'm sure we'll see a uptick or again, just because the buying and selling was again change hands. But other than that, it's a business as normal for us.
It's certainly it's going to be a news-driven year for us, right? Coming out of COVID or moving out of it and moving into an election here in the States. What are you thinking? What are you looking for?
Stability. I think as much as I like the volatility piece, I think it'd be good to get some level of stability as well. I think from an economical point of view, as I mentioned earlier, Canada is going to get impacted no matter what happens with the reaction that happens in the U.S. From an election point of view. So we're hoping there's a bit more stability in the marketplace as well. As much as we love the volatility piece, it's other businesses are significantly impacted, as we heard earlier as well from Metrolinx and other folks that are on the call today. So stability is always good.
Bobby, thanks for coming on the program today. Stay with us. We'll circle back to you.
Sure.
Sangy, I know you're still with us. When you reimagine the future state of business and work, what are you thinking about? What are you driving towards? What's the future state look like to you?
Yeah, Hunter, it's a very, I know it's a very important topic for pretty much everybody. As I think about it, last 90 days, when I look at so much has happened, and in a way, it's been preparing us for a new normal that has been taking shape. I mean, as Harry said earlier, things are changing, and I see a lot of things will stay changed at a drastic level. Others will get further reinforced that have already been kind of in play for the last few years. So there are basically 5 kind of elements when I've been socializing with my peers in the industry, and I have kind of envisioned those more in regards to what post-pandemic do we need to be focusing on. It's just a perspective from my perspective, from my standpoint, and I would welcome any other thoughts or feedback from your audience. But before we get into that, I thought it would be good to pop up a question, if you could, maybe Nikki or Melissa could help pop up this question, which is to really gauge the perspective from the audience. When you think about user experience, both customer and colleagues, where is that topic in regards to the top 5 priorities of your CEO? So if you could maybe take just a few seconds to provide your response and click one of these 5 options. And momentarily, we'll just share with you the results as well. So while we have people kind of taking this poll, and if we maybe do we want to show it now, or do we want to wait, Hunter, maybe a little later?
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's. Why don't we drive into your major points?
Yeah. So what I would say, as I kind of talked about those 5 points, the first one to me is related to this polling question. Is I believe the experience is going to be paramount, and we'll need to really ensure that as we are working in different kind of work setups, different work environments, we don't lose sight of that important element. The second one is continuing to kind of experiment, and I think interesting to see that. In fact, I'm quite pleased to see that strongly agree, and somewhat agree are basically it's adding up to 97%. And so that's glad to see that as a priority. But the second one to me is kind of continuous experimentation and delivering digital now. I think as Tom said very appropriately, this should have been going on in the past, and companies should have been preparing for this. And I believe companies that had invested in digital more proactively performed much better. And for others, it would be more of an imperative going forward, not a nice to have strategy. The third one is thinking about remote first. And this kind of goes back to also the experience aspect. When you try to retrofit a work from office kind of half-heartedly to work from anywhere, it will have experience issues, and it will cause challenges, especially when you get into the hybrid kind of a setting, as we heard earlier on this webinar. So we have to be able to kind of leverage the tools, and there are multiple tools out there, and tools that are being further innovated in regards to how do you bring that interaction from all remote to all at work to basically this hybrid model. The fourth element to me, Hunter, is, and I take this very seriously, I believe it's very important, is staying secure, and especially in this new kind of era, staying secure every time and from everywhere. And to me, that will be very critical. And we've seen some challenges in the industry in the last 90 days. And as Bobby was saying, there was some uptick, and some of this was attributed to remote not have been thought about in a more kind of a proactive way. And then last but not the least, very critical to keep investing in our talent, investing in our culture. I think you're kind of going to see people hiring for aptitude, you're hiring people for adaptability, and then being flexible in being able to find the talent, finding the talent where it exists, not forcing the talent to come to a certain location. And we've seen that in our cybersecurity practice, where when we took that approach of hiring top talent where it existed anywhere, in any of the locations, it's been a huge help for us. So those are the kind of few aspects. And as I do see, and I've seen this through the industry, other polls as well, we are seeing over 10x the increase in people expressing their interest to work remotely going forward. And likes of ING or Tata's or Twitter have already made those positions very public. So a lot to come in the coming next 18 to 24 months.
Interesting, Sangy. Thanks so much for coming on the program today. We'll circle back to you. Stay with us. Hey, Tom.
Sure, thanks.
Let's talk about the push and pull from work at in the office and work at home. What are you seeing?
Yeah, Hunter, I love this question, but I also hate it. And the reason I hate it is because there's such a disparate and very passionate set of opinions on this topic. And I think many of us are seeing this push-pull between work from home, return to the office. What does that look like? Why do I ever have to go back to the office? I don't mean to oversimplify things, but to some degree, it's coming down to what we would traditionally call digital natives, or the folks who grew up with technology, who are used to working anywhere. And you've got a technology organization. Most of our companies, technology folks are more accustomed to working remotely and working from home. So you've got that one side of the equation. And then on the other side, you have more traditionalists. They may be entire companies, they may be industries, they may be certain people we work with, they may be certain people we know. The traditionalists are more inclined to have us back in the office, who put a premium on that face-to-face contact. So that's one of the push-pulls we're seeing. I'm also seeing, as many places around the globe start to either return to the office or prepare to return to the office, this heightened anxiety is even more heightened in urban areas or in places in like India or Manila, as an example, where there's a lot more mass transit, maybe a lot more people per capita, a lot more fear of getting exposed to virus. So you're not only seeing this digital native versus traditionalist, but you're seeing geographic polarization of what this looks like. I wish I knew the answer. It's my #1 question I get asked in my employee town halls and roundtables. I think most companies, too, including us, are going to find that right balance, which has a loosening of work from home. But I don't see most companies going all work from home, because there's a certain value and a certain premium of having that physical contact and that physical energy that you feed off of being in the office and being around other people. The ones who are successful at retaining and energizing their business and their employees will find that right balance.
Hey, Tom, you've been an incredible career through many different industries and CIO roles. How do you define a successful culture, a healthy culture, and what are you looking for most, and how do you inspire your culture?
Yeah, I think culture is one of those things that you can't necessarily, I mean, you can, but you can't necessarily write it down on a piece of paper and say, thou shalt do these things. It's something that guards the way you work, the way you behave. It's not only implied, but it's understood. I think the culture that I'm trying to drive within not only Ingram Micro, but any place I've ever worked or anybody I ever come in contact with, is one where your efforts and your outcomes and your execution will be rewarded, sort of a meritocracy, of course. There's also a culture of what you'll hear me refer to as safe. I want a safe culture. And what I mean by that is where you feel safe to be transparent and ask for help, or where you want to show your vulnerabilities, or maybe you can't get everything done, or you're willing to innovate and make mistakes. So there's that culture there as well. And I think the other thing is this culture of diversity and inclusion, which is super important always, but even maybe more important than ever right now. But the talent comes from everywhere in anybody. And I've had the opportunity recently to participate in some sessions where we're trying to be better listeners and be more empathetic, engaged listeners, where we can not only hear what our employees are saying, but we can actually feel what they're saying. And I think in these turbulent times, that culture of having empathetic situational leadership where people feel empowered, but at the same time safe and included, is so important, and you can't underestimate that.
Excellent points, Tom. Hey, thanks so much for coming on today's program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Hey, Jenny, back to you. When you think about inspiring and motivating your team, what's working and what's your go-to?
I think it's, first of all, it's deep commitment. It's deep commitment us as the leaders to the organization and our teams, but also deep commitment of our teams to our vision, to our strategy, to our inspiration. Speaking about this, how many years we worked together, Hunter? Quite a few years.
A decade.
So, a decade, exactly. So I'm after medical procedures, I'm still with stitches, but I was not able to refuse to be today on the panel because it's always so beneficial to be and contribute. But speaking about deep commitment, we created strategy and we got approval of senior leadership in November. And then hard times hit. And these decisions that you're trying to make, are you going just in the maintenance mode and trying to maintain crisis situation, or you're still going forward and you're going to implement strategy that moving indeed from a more service-oriented department to more business-oriented, when you're asset, when you're leadership and not just supportive functionality. So by the way, even in these hard times, we are going to hire, and I'm by myself looking for VP of Strategy and Transformation. The posting will be next week, or maybe even on Tuesday. So if you're interested, apply. But what I want to say is, first of all, it's deep commitment. Second is constant communication. And as I mentioned before, very open, very transparent, very honest communication. But it's also leading by example. So it's very important who is your leadership team and how your leadership team committed by themselves.
Jenny, great to see you. Thanks for coming on the program. Thank you for the compliment. Great job.
Always a pleasure.
Rodney, welcome to the program. Rodney Fullmer is the Global CTO, Aero Global Services, Aero Electronics. Great to see you, Rodney.
Hey, Hunter, how are you?
Thanks for making it. Where are you coming in from today?
From Denver, Colorado.
Okay, so we really do have a global summit going on here. This is great.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what's been your experience these past 3 months, and where are you today in terms of the pivot and getting ready for growth?
Yeah, similar to what a lot of the other panelists have said, right? A big switch to remote, big switch with our workforce moving remote, engaging with customers remotely, and just kind of figuring out how we stay super connected both to our employees and to our customers, and doing that in a way that can be accomplished remote. So, I'm sure as everybody else, we pivoted to, video conferences primarily, and then just doing a ton more staff outreach, really making sure our organization doesn't feel disconnected when they're remote. And then for us, around the growth side of the equation, it's how are we extending that out to our customers. So it's probably been like the single biggest focus we've had in the last 3 months is really maintaining that customer engagement.
And how's it working for you?
It's good. It was a little hard for everybody at first. We're a B2B company, so we're pretty traditional, and we sort of go see our customers in person. And, we didn't really use video much prior to this. And so, there was definitely a transition period where, people were sort of uncomfortable doing it. And especially because everybody was at home, we had a lot of anxiety, I think, about, my kids are going to come in, my dog's going to come in. And, I kind of really just tried to encourage my team and my partners in the business that, don't worry about that. Like, everybody's in the same boat together. And, it was pretty amazing seeing how fast people pivoted around it once they realized that, everybody's sort of in the same place and everybody's learning to engage differently. And, we had a great town hall, and my dog ran into the office right in the middle of it, the worst possible time. And it was just like a perfect use case for me to explain to people how, that's not important. We're all going through that. The important thing is to be connected. And it's actually, we've really pivoted around it, and we're finding some really new and creative ways of using video, not just our sort of live discussions, but using video as a pre-recorded mechanism to kind of get our message out and help our customers engage with us. And actually, we're getting really great results from it.
So you did have to reimagine your business, your go-to-market business model.
Yeah, for us, it really affected us in a big way, just given that we're B2B and we're kind of a traditional company, and being engaged virtually is not something that we traditionally did in the past. So yeah, we really had to pivot around that. I think it's very much something, though, that will be with us going forward. Like, we've realized a lot of benefit from it in terms of the amount of engagement we can have, how well we can engage, how frequently we can engage, and really in a lot of ways efficiency out of it. We're even talking about holding our customer advisory board meeting, something that we've done twice a year, and we've always done it in person. We're going to do that virtually this year for the first time, and I think we'll actually have broader and deeper contribution as a result of it. So we're super excited about kind of the ground that we broke in the last 3 months in this space, and what we'll be able to do going forward.
So did it allow you also not only to go more touch your distribution channels, but your direct customers?
That's right. Yeah. So we actually are seeing in a lot of cases where now that our traditional resale network has kind of gone to the end customer on our behalf, they're able to actually pull us into those discussions, and it gets really interesting because you get a lot closer to sort of the innovation, the business problems, the challenges, the objectives from an outcome perspective that your ultimate end customer is experiencing, and that allows us to do a much better job in making sure the right products and services are available to them. So I think that's going to be a huge boost to us going forward.
Excellent. And a little bit about your leadership style through this whole crisis.
Yeah. So, I think empathy and understanding are probably the two most important things, and I think as executives, it's hard sometimes to balance that with the incredible pressure you have from a business performance perspective. I'm sure I'm no different than anybody else in the audience that, there was massive concerns about the impact to business that COVID was going to have. And while that's super important, and that's why we're all part of the companies that we're part of, I think you have to balance that and park that and really focus on hearing your teams, hearing your customers, making sure people understand that you're there for them. I mean, it's an extraordinarily difficult time that everybody is going through. And so I think if there's, one common theme that we really try to infuse into every aspect of our leadership in the last sort of 3 to 4 months, it's been, sort of empathy and listening as the guardrails for what we were trying to accomplish.
That's really well stated. Thank you, Rodney. Really, really appreciate coming on the program today. Great to see you, and hopefully we'll get you engaged with the upcoming Denver Summit. Thanks.
I love that.
Great. Hey, Bobby, final comment, final word, thoughts, wrap up the panel?
I'll go back to a couple of comments Jenny and Rodney made on the culture thing. Look, I think we're all kind of struggling with the same thing. How do you maintain the corporate culture now that we all gone remote, and continue to, as the new blood comes into the organization, how do the new blood get exposed to the corporate culture as well? So it is a pretty important topic. I think it's going to stay important for a number of months to come, probably longer. One of the things we're doing, to Rodney's comment, look, I think it's all comes down from my mind to tone from the top. The dog walking in. I've seen our leaders do it, our executives do it, just because they think if they don't do it, or if there's no interruption and their life is perfect on video, it's just going to trickle down. And I know that's not the case with all of us. So I've seen videos where it has happened, and they've taken it quite lightly, and so forth. And I think it's showcasing across our culture, our folks and employees to say, look, it is a tough time for all of us, and if your kids at home or pets, it's just going to happen. That's just the nature. But as an organization, as most of you guys have done that as well over the last 4 weeks, I would say we're paying way more attention now to mental health, long hours, starting at 6 in the morning till 6 in the afternoon, for that matter, it can happen. So we're actually putting in processes and actually practices in place to say, look, is there ways to reduce that work tension all the time, maybe doing meetings 50 minutes at a slot rather than 60 minutes, not sending emails Friday afternoon if we don't need the answers over the weekend, and so forth and so on. So we're trying multiple things, and as well to see what hits and what sticks to with the employees and so forth. But other than that, I think it's our leadership team has been really shown interest. I know executives that have gone and met with hundreds of employees on one-on-one basis over video, even a 15, 20-minute call for that matter. It's just been phenomenal change from that point of view and giving people assurance that we're here for them no matter what the case is. On the final thought, look, I wear a cyber hat and a technology hat. So most of the time I speak to myself a lot, trying to figure out if it's availability or security. But my final thoughts are, look, cyber stuff is important, as Sangy mentioned, and we're doing significant amount of work in that space. We're actually pivoted some of our playbooks because most of our playbooks were designed to be working from the office when it comes to incident management, for example. Now we're all remote. We have pivoted our playbooks to handle remote, even the cybersecurity experts being remote. And if there's an incident, how do we handle that? So that was a big pivot for us. We were trying to figure out how do we make sure we have the right tools and people and the communication during the incident can actually take place between the different teams. So that was important for us. No, other than that, we talked about the talent a bit. Things are pretty normal for us from a business point of view at this point.
Excellent. Hey, Bobby, great points. Really appreciate your insights, your engagement and time with us. Awesome. Jenny, great job. Really appreciate it. Great to see you. Thanks for the compliments. Again, Rodney, great job. Tom, good to see you. And Sangy, always good to see you, my friend.
Hunter.
Hopefully you all can stay with us. Next up is the Industry Search Executive Update. Hey, Tony, welcome to the program. Tony Lang from Diversified Search.
Great to see you, Hunter, and thank you for inviting me today.
Hey, guys. In North America, Tony is one of the most connected search executives west of the Mississippi, maybe globally. No, certainly nationally. But Tony, what are you seeing out there with leaders, tech leaders, CIOs, and talk to us a little about the hero and the villain?
So really, let me start at this point. Everybody knew that things were changing. We knew it was happening. It was perhaps 2 to 5 years away. Suddenly, it's 2 to 3 months away. So everything is sped up, and there's 3 big issues. There's what is your corporate strategy and roadmap? What is your kind of technology strategy and roadmap? What is your people strategy and roadmap? And those things are now in sharp focus. From a corporate perspective, business models are changing. Companies are being saved by IT. You're involved in purpose, and the purpose of every business, find and keep customers. And so the tech leader, having saved the company, now has a big voice. How are you using that voice? Technology, we've all known, move to modern architectures. Everyone's an Apple front end and an Amazon back end. Are you doing that? And this is where the hero and villain thing comes out. If you're a hero today, you probably started the journey 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and you were able to adapt. If you're a villain, you probably didn't, and you were caught with your trousers around your ankles. The third piece is all about leadership. And we've heard from Tom and Sangy and Bobby and Harry, Rodney, Jenny. We've heard of what they're doing around leadership. And hopefully in this group today, we can unpack some of the leadership issues a little bit more. But that's kind of where I want to start.
Excellent, Tony. Thanks. Hey, Jonathan, great to see you. Jonathan Ward is the founder and CEO of Ward Technology Talent. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Hunter. Good to see you too.
Good to see you, man. So give me an update. What are you seeing out there? What's the next the next big deal?
I guess if we're looking at trends that we're seeing in 2020, I wrote a couple points down here. One of the things I'd mention is it seems like there's a movement more towards business-led IT. IT departments realizing the importance of being business and IT being equal partners and kind of truly understanding what the business needs are and dealing with that. And what feeds into that is what we're seeing from a technology standpoint, I would say, is a self-service model. So we're seeing more technologies now that enable individual workers that aren't traditionally IT tech savvy to create custom workflows as the technology gets easier. So I think that's one thing that CIOs need to build in. To kind of piggyback on what Tony said, you want to embrace all these modern technologies and have things set up, but we're seeing Microsoft and other companies now come up with Flow and other technologies that are really empowering the average worker to have impact on the technology flow of what they do and customize it themselves. So the self-service model, I would say, would be and be something. And then the third thing I would mention with kind of things we're seeing is trying to tame and understand and leverage the new technologies that are disruptive. So obviously cloud is a massive one. And it's not just cloud for one application, but you're now getting multiple applications being integrated. So, there's security and other components that the CIOs need to obviously be aware of in integrating all these cloud environments, artificial intelligence, robotic process automation. Those are kind of three different things I would say that are kind of coming up now that CIOs are embracing trend-wise.
When you say, Jonathan, it's an incredibly creative time now for us really to innovate and really change the business?
It is. And like I said, we're just seeing, in my opinion, the tip of the iceberg with these technologies allowing individual workers that aren't programmers to go in and actually themselves adjust the workflows, et cetera, that they're dealing with daily. And then once we start feeding in artificial intelligence and getting, better handle and use of those technologies, there's a lot of exciting things to come for sure.
Very cool, right? Exciting times. Thanks, Jonathan, for making the program. You've been a strong supporter with us up in Toronto for about 10 years. Good to see you. Hey, Tom Ferguson, he's the partner and head CIO and digital technology officer's practice of Page Executive. Tom, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter, how are you?
Good to see you. Now, we all noticed the accent. Where are you coming in from?
I'm in a lovely place called Ascot, Berkshire, in just outside London, so about 45 minutes.
Excellent. UK, yeah, great.
Near the Queen.
Okay, there you go. Pretty good neighborhood, right?
It's okay. It's not too shabby.
Right.
But no, it's been an interesting one because we normally have Ascot Racecourse this week, which is a huge race event if you're into your horses.
Nice.
But it's all been online, so fairly quiet here at the moment.
Are they actually running it, or we know what?
They are. They're running it without any spectators, which is nice for us. So no traffic, no pubs, and hundreds of thousands of people crawling the tiny streets of our small village.
There you go. Hey, look, tell me a little bit about the global kind of global things that you're seeing that we may not see here in Toronto or the U.S. Any kind of a global scenario you want to enlighten us with?
I think there's a couple at the moment which we come across quite often, and it's less so about the CIO or the CTO or the global capacity. It's more about the chief exec at the moment. And we wrote an article based upon some feedback that we had. I'd be more than happy to share it, which was the digital CEO of the future. And that was more chief execs actually looking at digital data technology in a different avenue as to what they have been done before. IT technology in a lot of organizations is always viewed as a cost center. Businesses don't understand that you have to spend a little to save longer term, and actually what digital technology can do for the organization as well as the customer. So we've seen a lot of change in the way that chief executives are looking to engage with the CIO. Are they first of all looking to empower internally? Therefore, what's the change agenda that goes with that? The communication. And are there too many forms of social channel for organizations to communicate through? So our business, a global FTSE organization has Zoom. We have Microsoft Teams. Too many choices. Therefore, actually tunnel visioning or all of the workforce into using a singular sort of platform has worked quite well. And the cost savings with that has been great too. But I think in terms of what they're looking for, I've seen people ask this question quite often. Now, if I'm from a different industry sector, can I move across? And my advice to those individuals looking for that next opportunity is to highlight your technology experience against what the organisation is looking to achieve or looking to do. And I think that's always important to highlight.
Perfect. Spot on. I love it. Are you able to share that report with us through a link?
Yes, I'll post it on the Zoom webinar chat. And then there it's for everyone to see. But yeah, we've written a few lately. So I'll post this one. And any questions, I'm always happy to take them.
Brilliant. We'll circle back to you. Thanks, Tom.
Thank
you.
You.
Tony, back to the program, Tony. I loved what Jonathan and Tom had to say. Thoughts or bills on what they were commenting on?
Yes, you know, a lot of this is just about leadership, and this is always my favorite topic. And we've heard from some great leaders earlier today. But if you think about what COVID-19 and what digital transformation has been doing, and if you add the additional complexity of, you know, Amy Cooper, George Floyd, and everything, there's a complex environment, and people they've needed vision and boldness and courage. They've had to do really hard things, you know, but at the same time, you know, you've got to care for your people, that empathy, engagement, worrying about the health, safety, emotional safety of people. Cultures are being defined or refined based on how this is all happening. And how do you build trust and influence and communicate in this sort of pixelated world? And there's a term that I love called adaptive resilience. And that's really, I think, the hallmark of the future leader. So imagine a flame or a fire. You know, if a big wind came, it would blow that out. But if you put a glass dome over the top and you were completely resilient, you can't flex, change, adapt as the circumstances are changing. So I'm looking for that adaptive resilience. Do you have a coherent long-term strategy, effective short-term stuff, you know, risk-based? Tom was talking about risks, customer focuses, you know, being inclusive, being aware of your impact, listening, openness, humility, self-care. You know, you got to have a work-life balance. Put on your own face mask before you care for others. Look after things. Have some strategic patience, because, you know, you need to understand that you're going to plant seeds, water seeds, but you can only really harvest when the time is right. And then the thing that underpins this is what I call some vulnerability. And I don't want to see a superhero. No one has the roadmap for what's happened in this past little period of time. Did you ask for help? Did you trust? Did you empower? Did you say, guys, I don't know what to do. Help me think this through. I want that authenticity coming through. And as I say, the overlay on all of this is the COVID, George Floyd demonstration. Do you have a sensitivity to the cultural events of our time? And have you woven in making sure that you have the right inclusiveness in your team, the right diversity in your team, to make sure that you're addressing things in an appropriate way?
Brilliant, Tony. Great job. Will there be innovation right now in this cycle?
If you're not innovative, you really aren't able to unlock the potential. You know, we heard from some of the previous leaders, we're now shortening those timeframes. What we thought would take 2 to 5 years has got to happen in 2 to 3 weeks. So innovation is huge. Budgets are hopefully being protective. Your voice is big. Take the challenge that's there in your organization. Do what Tom said. Influence the CEO appropriately. Hopefully the CEO is an open mind. Take the gap, you know, charge forward and innovate dramatically in your business.
Tony, thanks for coming on the program today. Great to see you. Jonathan, welcome back to the program. What are some of the trends right now that you're seeing for CIOs, Jonathan?
Yeah, I guess one of the things we're seeing in general on the IT side of things is projects morphing more into products. You know, gone are the days, I guess, you know, Tony was saying how things being done now in weeks versus years in the past or months. You know, that similar type concept. People are starting to focus more on treating projects as products and having that ongoing iterative approach, which, you know, is key. It's something we've all been talking about for years as part of Agile, et cetera. So, I mean, that's something that's more and more important in today's market, and having that mentality, again, of having your company as a product-based company, or having that mentality when developing solutions, you know, internally and externally. And to piggyback off that, you know, when you get into the iterations and, you know, there's a whole side of that, which is more, I guess, where improvement turns more introspective as well. So with the staff, there also needs to be those iterations to help your staff adjust and learn and grow as, you know, as the economy and the times and recessions, et cetera, kick in. So, you know, sometimes we get way too focused on the technology and delivering the best solution, but we also need to make sure our team, you know, we're continually improving and helping our team adjust with all the technology and opportunities and creativity around us. And I guess, one of the things that has been mentioned a couple times is we're really seeing technology is keeping businesses afloat. You look at right now, people can't leave their homes, et cetera, or not as much. And without technology, we would be stuck. Like think about my parents going to the grocery store and being able to drive through. They're in their 70s. Even online banking is something they said they would never do. They finally gotten into doing it and they love it. So I think really understanding how important technology is to businesses, and that's been showcased. So there's personal improvement iteration. There's taking a concept of project-driven companies to product-driven and short iterations, and also with our staff internally, not purely focusing on technology, but making sure we're doing iterations with our staff and focusing on their growth as well.
Excellent. Great comments. Jonathan, thanks for coming on the program. Great to see you.
Thanks, Hunter.
Awesome. Hey, Tom, welcome back. When you think of helping C-suites make decisions, how do you use data and analytics to help drive that process?
In many shapes and forms. I think that chief executives and C-suite are always keen to see the numbers and facts and figures that go alongside. I think our job is to help them by providing accurate figures to them and opening their eyes to maybe looking at someone slightly different or viewing the market in a different way. Many organizations that I work with, they will notice that, if you ask them who do they view as market leading experts, it's rarely an organization within their sector. They always like to point to a different organization that's more local, where you can talent pool from, because your competitor might be based 500 to 1,000 miles away. And actually, in today's market, in what I see is, you write banking candidates off a lot of the time for a consumer-led organization. And if you look at the technology stack that they're using or their experience of the transformation, they can be closely aligned. So I think it's about opening their hearts and minds to stepping out of their comfort zone by those facts and figures and data analytics. And sometimes, people are wanting a needle in a haystack, so therefore you're able to provide those analytics up front and let them know that they need to look slightly differently, because what they're asking for isn't just simply there at the moment.
You used that word, you chose the phrase hearts and minds. What does that really mean to you?
I think for me personally, hearts and minds is a piece where, if I look at many of my CIO community and I've asked them, have they spoken to someone who, could be a first line support analyst in their team or part of their wider team or remit? And the chances are no. So I think a lot of the CIOs within my community have done fabulously well to get around their business as a whole, show their face to those from the bottom upwards. And what I might mean by that is not by job title, but by seniority, years experience in the IT technology or development function. So I think that's been a really good sign in the market. I think it's provided opportunity for, technologists to probably express their thoughts, feelings, and opinions in a slightly different way to get the job done, essentially.
Excellent, brilliant. Tom, great to have you on the program. Really good
Thank
to
you.
see you.
Good seeing you too, Hunter. Take care.
Big thanks to Tom, Tony, and Jonathan. Great job. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great to see you, Tone. Next up are Securing the Future of Work. Keith Gordon of Ally Financial. Keith, you're welcome to.
Thanks, Hunter.
Hey, lots changed right in a little over 3 months. What are some of the key aspects of CISOs in the new normal, and the responsibility of really securing this this new enterprise architecture, right?
Yeah, it's been an interesting change because if you think about where the threat landscape historically is, right? You think about your physical buildings, your network that sits around them, and then as I think about third parties, that's really, I look at that as an extension of our company. Well, especially in the third party space, you've got a lot of additional security controls you put around, especially when you've got kind of clean environments where you've got people in locations where, you know, they're purposefully being segregated physically to protect data. You know, they can't take cell phones in the room. They can't take, you know, pads and paper. Well, now all those people are working from home too. So for me, it's all around data protection. What can we do to continue to protect the data, either remove it, mask it, tokenize it, whatever we can do to protect the data that we so closely hold. You know, and that's been one of the primary drivers of kind of data protection. But then you think about the other side of things is, you know, you just sent all these people to work from home. You know, how do you protect things when they say, oh, I need to print from home? Well, what are the print requirements? What are the data destruction requirements? You know, how do you manage the physical side of data? You know, as mentioned a little bit earlier around the threats that we see, I mean, we are very similar to the threats that were discussed. You know, nothing significantly changed other than the types of attacks, the types of phishing attacks that we see to us. We've seen a pretty significant uptick in phishing attacks to our customers. So we've implemented some controls called DMARC, D-M-A-R-C, to help us protect our customers from that standpoint. But it's definitely been an exciting 3 months, moving from, you know, my traditional cyber role every day to also own crisis management and business continuity. So it's like I've been wearing definitely the double hat the past few months.
So that must have been a real challenge to have all of a sudden your role expanded by at least 100%.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's when you've got to lean on your leadership team and know that, you know, they're going to go execute what you've asked them to go execute, so that you can be out in front, kind of leading the direction. You know what I tell folks all the time is that you always need to have that light post, that kind of that lighthouse sitting out there in front, saying that's where we're going. And my job is to keep everybody in the guardrails. I mean, it's okay to bounce between the guardrails a little bit because it's going to be bumpy. Nothing's going to be perfect. But I'm going to help lead the team to help us get there and kind of allowing the team to go execute.
Great to have you on the program, Kate. Stay with us also. Next
Thanks.
up, Anju Virmani is the CIO of Cargojet. Anju, welcome. Thanks for being on the program. I think you might be on mute.
No, I'm not.
Great. Now I can hear you. Awesome.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me. And it's been a real pleasure to listen to all these pearls of wisdom that are coming out of this session. At Cargojet, we are pretty much, we're an airline. So you would think traditionally our business has gone down, but our business has definitely been booming. We have doubled, tripled our capacity, our number of flying hours, and flights to China to bring back PPE for federal government, for our provincial governments, for hospitals, you name it. It's just been very, very wild. And in terms of a security perspective, and keeping our employees safe, our pilots who are flying to China, we had to be very creative. We wanted a contactless cockpit. So nobody's in touch with the pilots. They are like, if one pilot goes down, you know, like a cluster of them goes down. So we have to be extremely careful. And when they were landing in Shanghai, they were actually escorted off the plane by people in hazmat suits and taken to a center where they were given a COVID test and then locked up in a hotel, taken their keys away with just a small window where they'd push in some food for them. And that became really unhealthy mentally and physically for our pilots. So we've had to be creative around our routing of the flights. So now we have 2 sets of crews, one positioned in Tokyo. And once our flights get there, they take the plane into Shanghai and then wait there, don't leave the plane, stay in the plane while the cargo gets loaded up, and then turn right back around to Narita, where another crew is waiting there to bring it back to us. So the safety of our pilots, you know, we're getting them regular testing. Our cockpits, our planes have to be sanitized more often, hospital-grade sanitization. So that's around the security and the safety aspect of our operation. From an IT perspective, I think we were one of those companies that were already in the middle of our digital strategy. And so it took us 2 days to flip everybody who could work remotely, with the addition of extra precautions for all the new devices that we purchased from Ingram Micro and CDW and wherever we could pick up devices from. And making sure that each endpoint is as protected as can be. And on top of that, also sending out, you know, the phishing, the scams haven't changed. It's just the content. You know, there's a lot of content that comes in. Click here for the latest COVID heat map, and you know, and those are infected. So constantly making our users aware that they still need to be, even though they're working from home, they still are connected to our networks, and they need to be really careful with what they link, what they click on, and you know, just user awareness training is being re-emphasized. From an infrastructure perspective, it's a real challenge to get bandwidth up and running with the telcos. So I'm sure all of the CIOs and CTOs are aware of that. It's been, all our staff are getting hazard pay or super pay. Obviously our costs have gone up, but so have the revenues, and the risk is higher in terms of human life out there, being in strange countries and strange airports and hotels. And we are managing all of that in a very sanitized, hygienic environment. Our CEO has been sending PPE to every city that we serve, to all our employees, giving them things to take home, you know, masks for their families, sanitizers for their families, so they don't take it from the office, and you know, kind of put their coworkers in jeopardy. So whoever needs PPE, you know, sanitizers, wipes, you know, there's an abundance of supplies that we send to all our employees. Coming back to work is going to be more of a challenge, because at least until September, because people don't have childcare. And also keeping our employees safe and engaged. Microsoft Teams, you know, I have meetings, and I'm actually, before COVID hit, I was looking for my successor because I thought it's time for me to retire. Well, I think that trajectory has now changed, because it's really difficult to hire someone in a leadership role and have them start remotely. But I'm also not that stressed out, because, you know, I'm not driving 2 hours into the office. So I keep my team highly motivated. I've given them yoga and stretch sessions on Zoom. We have some social hour. Most of them have children, so the social hour is not that popular, but 11:30 stretch, you know, learn to stretch your body, keep your mind active. I've had a psychologist come in and give them talks. So, and I'm giving them a week each, my top 5 managers, to be the CIO for the week, so they can kind of appreciate more than, you know, what else goes into being developing their skills. So that's what I've been doing.
Anju, what a great briefing. Thank you very much. I loved it. Yeah, really frontline work globally. Yeah, super. Stay with us, please. Next up, Ben Sapiro is the Global CISO of Great Western Life.
Morning or good afternoon. How are you?
I'm well, great. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me on, Hunter.
Appreciate it. Great to make your acquaintance and have you engaged. So when you think about cybersecurity talent being in high demand and the future of work, all of a sudden now in the virtual world, does your sourcing strategy open up a little bit, Ben? Can you source people from a broader region than just someone that comes to the office every day?
Well, our hope is yes. And I think all of the CIOs and CISOs on the call, and especially the talent folks that were on previously, would note that finding good technology, cybersecurity talent, machine learning talent is hard. And especially when you're geographically constrained for whatever reason. It might be culture, it might be regulatory needs, you name it. We've had this wonderful experiment over the past, I'll call it 3 months, where we had a great culture, and I think the truth is the same for every organization. We had this really good culture in place, we knew each other, and then all of a sudden we're all working from home. And it depends on the organization, but if you were to look at some of our subsidiaries with global footprints, well, we're really not a work from home culture would be the frequent refrain. And now, lo and behold, 3 months down the road, we're definitively a work from home culture because it works. And so obviously there's this opportunity to source talent from anywhere now. Now, you're going to be a bit of a challenge to make sure that they're, compatible time zones and compatible culture and so on, but it broadens the market. And the thing that worries me, though, is that a lot of cybersecurity talent, especially in Canada, and I'm sure there are other geographies that are like that, have enjoyed sort of this peace and quiet. There are some economies that have a voracious demand for cybersecurity talent. And so I looked at all of the Canadian technology leaders on this panel, and I go, well, if part of our strategy to defend our talent pool was because we were Canada and people tended to leave us alone, or because we were another geography and people tended to leave us alone, what's that going to do to the market now? Where suddenly people from outside of jurisdiction, outside of geography, are going to turn around and say, I can get better talent, and they're going to start acquiring away. And so despite some of the communication we've seen from global employers to say, well, we're going to normalize salaries based on geography and so on, I think the inverse is actually going to happen, where because of the ability to acquire talent pretty much anywhere now, CIOs and CISOs are going to be looking to how do they secure their existing talent so they're not pulled away from them, especially during this very important time.
Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? When you think of the threat landscape, does it look different post-COVID-19?
So I'll echo what Keith and what Anju said is generally, I don't think so. The controls, the defenses that we had before are the same ones we had now. Now, sure, if you never had a work from home culture, if you never had a work from anywhere culture, and we were fortunate to have that long before COVID hit, then your controls will probably be designed and predicated on the notion of you're in the office and therefore we can quote unquote keep an eye from you. But that was never true. Management by walking around and looking at people's screens never worked. So really you needed to have controls that would work no matter where people were working from. And ideally you were working from anywhere already. Now, the scale was different. Before where we had a few thousand people working from home every day, now we have over 95% of our employees working from home and in some regions up to 99%. But the types of attacks that we are seeing, the tools, techniques, procedures that the bad actors are using, they're all the same. Our existing defenses see it. Our employees are still continuing to do things we'd prefer they not do, and we're having to block them using the same tools and technologies that we have. So in general, I don't think the landscape changes. The thing that does change, though, is I'll call it this heightened emotional sensitivity. Everybody's stressed about the first wave of COVID. Everybody just wants to hear what the World Health Organization or the CDC or your local health regulator is saying. And that hook, that attention-grabbing bit, that's what's unique about this. The fact that I can say World Health Organization or CDC, and no matter where you come from in the world, you know one of those two acronyms. Mm-hmm. That is unfortunately a gift for bad actors because now they know they've got this hook, this lure where they can title an email or some sort of scam and get absolutely anybody's attention, which is really different from 3 months ago when I had to be very specific about my geography and what was going on in the world to get somebody's attention before they clicked on a bad link.
Interesting. What keeps you up at night? What are you most worried about?
What am I most worried about? That we're not going to keep up with the business's rapid demand for being digital. It's not so much about can we be digital, it's can we be digital fast enough so that they don't have to come back to the office? Can they avoid having to do paper-based things so that we can keep them secure continuously?
Interesting. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Stay with us. Next up, Jean-Louis Marin. Jean-Louis. I apologize, Jean.
Jean-Louis. There you go.
Sorry, Jean-Louis. My apologies.
That's why I say always call me JL. It's easier that way.
JL's a lot easier, but you know what? I was up for the challenge, so give me a little credit. Hopefully I get points.
You did it. Credit. After the 6th try, you got it right.
Third. All right, JL. Okay. VP of IT of Napoleon Group of Companies. So you guys have an interesting group of companies. What's Napoleon Group?
Well, we manufacture barbecues, fireplaces, and HVAC systems North America as well as in China, and we distribute worldwide. The company, relatively speaking, has been going through a digital evolution for the past 5 years. And so when COVID hit us, we were prepared, so to speak, like everybody else, kind of, but we were able to meet the challenge. And within a week, the workforce that worked in all our facilities, those that are knowledge workers, those people that use computers, were able to go home and work from home. That posed quite a bit of a challenge for our IT folks, but we were able to do it within a week. Again, like everybody else, we had kind of like a couple of aces in our back pockets, technologies like Citrix, such as well as some of the cybersecurity defenses we had in place. But where we saw the challenges were at the factories, where at some point, depending on which geography you were in, which jurisdiction, people were not allowed to go back to work, even though they wanted to work and we wanted them to work. And so the team in the operations, not IT operations, actual factory operations, put together several protocols to enable when the workers would be able to work, to come back to work. And so we have Mylar everywhere. We have got plastic barriers. There's all kinds of protocols. Somebody else earlier in the program said that food kiosks and of the like were removed. We had to do the same thing. And then China went back online relatively quickly, which was good for the supply chain. Now, we were planning to possibly see a massive drop in revenues. We were planning for it. We were strategizing around it. And then, of course, everybody's working from home and nobody can order stuff from restaurants. Guess what? You want to barbecue stuff. So we saw huge demand, specifically on the online channels and our big box store partners. The demand went gigantic. So that was a boon, and it quite helped dramatically the business and our preparedness for COVID. But the challenges still exist with the workforce being at home relatively in an insecure fashion. We do have the safeguards in place, but we're seeing an insurgence of attacks on the perimeter, as well as from the end users, which tend to be our most vulnerable point of egress.
Well, JL, what an interesting story. So you guys made out. I just actually bought a grill too. Same reason, same idea.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Hopefully it's a Napoleon and not a Weber, but I won't hold that against you.
Hey, what percentage will be able to remain working at home as you work through that idea, that balance?
Yeah, we're actually going through that now, realizing that a lot of folk like working from home or have actually more ability to pick and choose whether they're coming into the office or staying at home and working. Since for the past 3 months, they have been very productive, and we've proven to the leadership that indeed working from home actually is more productive. A lot of us believed in that, and many of the other senior leaders didn't. Now we've got the use case, the proof that indeed your workforce is more collaborative. They invent their ways around how to create work units in collaboration and utilizing technology to solve problems. And we're seeing now that we're planning towards keeping a large majority of the workforce working from home, those that can. We do have our challenges when it comes to power stations, things that do design work, 3D CAD, that kind of stuff, where we're investigating technologies to overcome those deficiencies. But the new norm will definitely be, we estimate probably 50% of the workforce remain home or have the option of floating between office and home.
So JL, is part of your whole security posture a plan to help folks work from home safely and securely?
Indeed. We've got a protocol that we've implemented where it's a checklist, as well as best practices to safeguard your work center from prying eyes or what have you, and making sure that your machine is not compromised by, Jimmy because he downloads free videos. Not that anybody is doing that, but most of those packages are riddled with malware and what have you. And since the machine, which is sitting on the home network, is exposed, we have to put additional safeguards to defend that endpoint.
Excellent. JL, thanks for coming on the program today. Good to see you. Hey, Keith, circling back to you, when you think about people working from home. How are you supporting your remote workforce in this unprecedented time?
Yeah, you know, as it's been mentioned earlier, and this is both an emotional, psychological, and physical challenge in many ways. You know, for us, we went from 99.5% of our workforce was in the office to 8 days later, we were 99.5% of our workforce remotely. Right, so it was a very different environment, and we do that. I mean, we're an all digital bank, so it's an interesting dynamic, but you know, we particularly thrive on an agile Scrum type development life cycle. So everyone's together, engaging, very tight knit company, and to be able to provide that level of support when they're remote has been a technical challenge, like JL just mentioned. It's, you know, some cases we've had to kind of buy multiple monitors for folks just to have in their homes, so that they could have almost that, you know, that similar display feel, and where they may have one display that's always up on video, like if it's a Scrum team, and it just may be all day long. They've got a Zoom meeting. We do use Zoom. A Zoom meeting may just be up all day. So there's a lot of different dynamics there, but we've had to do a lot of different types of communication styles. So like our CEO has moved to weekly communications to our folks, to the entire company. And in some cases, it's actually a video from, you know, his house that, and he actually kind of went to his house at the beach, and he's been working from down there, and he does the video from his office at the beach house, right? So it kind of brings it down to a level everyone's like, yep, okay, we're all on the same page here. And one was even interesting because, you know, we talked about the informality. Like his son came in the room and kind of left, and he kept it in the video, right? And he just kind of wanted to keep it real. But we do a lot more of kind of engaging things like Anju mentioned. So I've got, I call them happy hours, and it's family invited happy hours over Zoom. You know, like last week we did a costume party, and all the kids and you know, they could come up dressed as costume, whatever they were. And, you know, 3 weeks ago, I invited a giraffe from a local zoo, right? So we had a giraffe come in, they were on Zoom, and, you know, it's just, how do you keep things normalized? How do you keep it light and engaging, and let folks know, hey, we appreciate you, but we also know that, you know, we need to kind of have a little bit of downtime too. And I purposefully tell my folks, you know, hey, at the end of the day, turn your computer off, go be with your family, because it's so easy for us just to keep on working. And the human element of this has been one that we have chosen to focus a lot of our efforts on. I mean, obviously the tech stuff, that was the meat and potatoes of like getting folks home, getting them working, getting them productive. But now it's been really focused on the psychological and the people element of keeping us as connected as possible.
How would you characterize your leadership style?
Well, my personal leadership style is, if you think about, you know, there's different types of leaders out there. There are those that are good people that go tell you how to do stuff. And then there are people that will bring you along and create connected and engaged teams. I'm the latter. Right. I'm not a great, I wouldn't have been good as a military leader because I'm not great at just barking out orders. You know, I'm really an engaged leader that invites, no, I don't care who you are in my organization. You know, you can come directly to me and we can have a conversation. But it's really around empowerment. You know, you empower folks to go do their work. You trust them, knowing that they're not going to get it perfect every time, but, you know, give them grace and encouragement and coaching when those opportunities do come up. That's the way I look at leadership.
Okay, so that's internal within your security group. When you think about that same idea, but tilted in a business, are you that same way collaborative and inclusive with the business to get the business on board to help you?
Oh, have to be. I mean, no doubt about it. And, you know, I'm a bit of an interesting animal in that I actually come from the business earlier on. I've got a marketing degree, started my career in marketing, and made the jump over to cyber, you know, about 15 years ago. So I can speak both languages, and that really helps create that business enablement. And I see my team as a business enabler. How can I help the business move faster to the cloud? How can I help my businesses move faster to, you know, distributed databases, or, you know, whatever that might look like? Because ultimately, a lot of times CISOs teams are looked at as stop signs. Oh, no, can't move forward now. You got the security guys here. I try to turn that dial completely to truly be that business enablement function.
Great. Keith, thanks for coming on the program. Great to see you again.
Yep, you too, Hunter. Thanks.
Anju, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Great. Hey, what a great story in your first round there. When you think about kind of the leadership style and skills that you've had that got you to this point, let's go back 3 months, and now we've been through this last 3-month window. What have you learned that's going to change or accelerate certain aspects of your leadership style going forward?
So my leadership style really hasn't changed, because this is the way I was before. I was very keen to develop my team, get them to have a skill set that if things went wrong in their current careers, they were equipped for their next careers. But I also made sure that they never wanted to leave. So I gave them the environment where they can learn. I gave them an environment where they are challenged. And most of my team has been with me. They were fresh immigrants when they came, right off the boat. Most of my team is right off the boat. Some of them have been with me now for 15 years. And you know, the digital journey or the transformation, it's not like you start one today and then you're gonna end it. I started my career in IT way back when, I'm gonna really date myself now, but I've already said I'm gonna retire. So when punch cards were first going out of style, right? So I've been on a journey since then, and it's only going to end when the end comes, right? And somebody else will continue that journey. So I think the biggest asset that I've had is the ability to, even for myself before I came into the CIO role, is to be always on the lookout for what's next and what's next. And it's like, I say to my team, it's like having antennas that are 365 degrees, and you kind of are always aware of, you know, where the trends are going. So that means keeping in touch with your peers, participating in sessions like this. And it's so much easier now with the internet and Zoom and all this great resources available to us. In the old days, you know, you were listening to conversations in the subways, you know, like what's next, you know, what other people were talking about. So this is a great time to be a leader where you can be inclusive. And I'm really going to talk a little bit about inclusiveness. And my next journey, you know, I'm also on the board of Ontario Health. Where I'm part of the innovation committee. Ontario Health is the single payer system of the province of Ontario in Canada. Our two mandates were one was to end hallway medicine, and the second one was to have a digital strategy. Well, guess what? Both of them, you know, I mean, the silver lining from COVID is that people are not going to the hospital. So in a way, hallway medicine has ended. But the digital side of healthcare has been that, you know, people are no longer going to the hospital, but they're connecting with their physicians and caregivers through virtual calls in a very safe and secure environment. So how many of us will go back to the doctor's office and wait for 2 hours? No, the doctor will wait for us now, which is what I like, you know, turning the system into a patient-centric system rather than a provider-centric system that we've been there so far. But my favorite topic right now is diversity and inclusion. If any of you connect with me on LinkedIn, you'll see that my last post is encouraging diversity on boards. And I've actually started a hashtag, and I would love it if all of you would support me on that, obviously believers, where an example was set by the co-founder of Reddit, where he resigned from his position and asked that a Black individual be replaced. So I'm asking all white men and women, or men and women of any color, who sit on more than 4 boards, to give up 1 seat for diversity. If you're joining a board, ask the question, how inclusive is your board? Right. Ask the question, you know, how can we make things equal, and how can we provide opportunity to those that haven't had representation? You know, my own particular health board, I'm the only brown person on that team. And if you look at the diversity of Ontario, like, it is unbelievably complex and multicultural and multi-ethnic. I actually posted a video from a board, an advisory board that I was appointed to by our then Prime Minister in 2007. And, you know, and so now I'm trying not to be politically correct. I'm saying things as I feel them. It's like, there's a picture of me, a brown woman, with 12 white silvered foxes. Let's just put it that way, okay? Yeah. So what's wrong with this picture? Because it's the same picture from 2007 to 2020. Yeah. We gotta do something. And today I just got a message that somebody else resigned from a very powerful position and asked, oh, Ben Mulrooney, who is the host of ET Canada, he resigned from his position, and he's saying that, you know, please fill it by a person of diversity. Oh, wow. So, you know, that's where I want to focus my attention next. That diversity is not just in how a person looks, it's in terms of disabilities, it's in terms of what experiences do you bring, it's in terms of age, gender, like anything you name it. And right. Technology needs to become bias averse, right? Yep. A lot of the AI and machine learning, the biases are built into that artificial intelligence. And as designers of software and products, we need to be totally aware of that. So right. Thank you for listening to me.
Anju, great job. Let's circle back. We have a couple different summits coming up that might address that specific topic. Thanks for coming on the program today. Before we go, Ben, you still with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Final word?
Final word. So I think the CIOs and the CISOs globally think about how to help the business navigate their sense of increased risk. They're looking to you to find what is acceptable. We all got put in a position recently of we have to keep the business running. How do we do it without harming everything at the same time? How do we keep that business going, be adequately secure? And they look to us as technology leaders, as security leaders, to say, what is acceptable? The decision is still theirs to make, but if you can help them find that navigation point to go, I understand this topic, this is what acceptable risk looks like, we can take this on so that we can sustain the business and we can get good at this. I think that's where our value as technology and security professionals comes from.
Excellent. Brilliant points. Thanks, Ben, for coming on the program today. We'll see you again soon. JL, you still with us? JL, final word.
Final word. I think we're going to come out of this a lot stronger, a lot more savvy when it comes to digital. I think the demands, what they refer to as the new norms, there's going to be definitely some parallels from the past, but we can't we can't forget, you know, the trials and tribulations that we've been through to get to where we are when we come out of this. And I think there's a lot of lessons learned to be had there as to what's going to continue to work, and how we can prop up the business to be more agile. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, JL. Big thanks to Keith, JL, Ben, and Anju. Thank you so much. A big thanks to all our speakers, actually. Great summit today. Probably our best ever in terms of thought leadership. Big thanks to Zoom, of course, the Toronto CIM chapter. We hope to see you again soon. We'll likely be back in 3 months with another HMG Live program. We'd love to continue the dialogue. Tony, good to see you. Anyone else still there? You feel free to turn your cameras on. Rodney, others.
Thanks, Hunter. Great conference today. Well done.
Super. Take care now.
Take care.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye now.